Hello, and welcome to Faith on Dirt Roads. Today's episode was recorded in what we call our Forever Ministry home for my nonprofit organization, His Heart for Africa in Jinja, Uganda. It is our ministry hub, a safe place for our students to hang out and be discipled during their school holidays. It's where we get to host friends in the community for book club, games, meals, and fellowship. You might hear life around us, like Loki, our Great Dane, African gray parrots and other birds, monkeys, our palm trees rustling in the wind, bodas, which are motorcycles used for transportation of people or goods, and many other sounds. You might even hear words we use daily in Jinja, but don't know what they are. You can always send me a note through our website, faithondirtroads.com, to learn more about life in Jinja. I'm excited to sit down and talk to our guest, Tara, on today's episode. We may have had a rocky start as friends, and that's on me, but I'm so blessed by our friendship today and so grateful God put us both in Jinja. I hope you enjoy hearing about her journey on these dirt roads, her ministry, and some of the challenges she has faced along the way. Hey guys, I'm super excited to have my friend Tara on with me, and we both live in Uganda, and I'm just excited for you to hear about where she's come from and everything that she's doing here. So Tara, welcome.
Hey, thanks.
So I just want to start and just ask you where you're from in the States.
I am actually from Tennessee, not far from where Heather's from. I grew up in Manchester and then lived most of my life in Murfreesboro.
Awesome. So what did you do in Tennessee prior to coming to Uganda?
What did I not do is a better question. I have worked EMS, I have worked healthcare for many years. Most of my experience has been in emergency room and emergency services. I also did occupational therapy before coming and started working in healthcare really when I was 15, 16 years old, a long journey of healthcare.
When you came to Uganda, what brought you here? What led you, and how long have you been here?
So I have been here 4 years now, and I was actually supposed to come in 2020, but the world shut down the week before I left. So I ended up coming in 21. It was all an act of God that brought me here because I was in Haiti on a mission trip, and the Lord spoke to me and told me I was doing international missions, and I argued a lot because I was living the American dream at that time. I had my house, my car, my great job. I loved what I was doing, and I absolutely did not want to leave that life. And whenever I actually came in 2018 on a short-term trip to Uganda with the intention of it just being a short-term trip. And when I was here, the Lord spoke to me and told me I was home. At that point, things started changing, and I started pursuing what does it look like in coming here, what would I be doing, things like that.
You mentioned Haiti. Had you been on a lot of different mission trips at that point?
Actually, my very first international mission trip was to Haiti, and that was where the Lord revealed to me I was going to be a missionary. I went on that trip as a pat on the back for myself, healing myself and helping others. I'm not going to lie about that. But after that, I went to Haiti 4 more times, and then I went to Belize, and then I ended up coming here on 2 short-term trips before I moved here full-time.
So you had done missions quite a bit before even jumping in full-time.
Yeah, over a period of about 2.5 years, I'd done many missions trips as God was working on my heart into living full-time.
Walk me through the process of what got you actually here. You were ready, COVID hit, the world shuts down, all of these things happen, but what were your steps in actually moving here? Do you have a sending organization? Did you at the time? What do you want to share about how you got here?
So I initially came here on the short-term trips with my church. My church was involved with an orphanage here that ended up being a fake orphanage. But in coming, I knew that God had more. And so the church initially was my full-time sponsor. When I first came, the church was providing all of my basic needs to live here and also providing everything for the ministry. And I was fully supported by them for about 2.5 years. And then they withdrew funding. And so I've been under a different mission sending organization since then, where I'm doing fundraising for myself. In the process of coming, I actually had to fight a lot of, I would say, feminist battles. I was told many times I shouldn't come as a single female. Even one of the pastors at the church made a comment about, are you just going there to find a husband? Are you just going there to save the world? There were a lot of very uneasy questions, but God just continued to reveal to me that this is where I was coming. When I first came here, 2 people from my church actually brought me and were here with me for 4 days, and they left. We had arranged a partnership with a Ugandan couple that lived here, and they were the ones that showed me around everything here, and I learned the culture through Ugandans who lived here. I knew that God wanted me to work with street kids, and so in doing that, I had to learn a lot of ins and outs, things that I was not used to, not comfortable with, but at the same time, God just continued to bring people into my life that were helping me and guiding me. The initial couple that we started working with, they have not been with us now for about 1.5 years. We have new staff that's with us, and the Lord has just revealed a lot of things through this entire process. But coming here, I was very certain I was supposed to be here, but I was very alone, if that makes sense. My church was sending me a check or depositing money in my account the first of every month, but there was never any discipleship through that. There was never any follow-up through that. I was on an island by myself, 8,000 miles away from home. So I had to learn a lot by myself really quickly, and it was definitely challenging. It was very hard at some times. But I slowly met a few people that, actually one family I met from the same city I was from. She invited me to Bible study, and that's where I came to know other people in the community outside of who I was already surrounded with. Since I wasn't part of an established big organization, it was harder to find people who were in different organizations.
Okay, so at this point, when you get invited to Bible study, you've been here, 2.5 years at that point?
No, I started the Bible study, I had been here maybe 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Not very long. Maybe even a little less than that. We were still on like a COVID lockdown at that point. We had curfews and everything. But I remember we would have to have Bible study a little earlier because of the lockdown, people driving across the bridge. So it was within the first few months of being here.
How did we first meet? Because that's a fun one.
Oh, Heather Teague. Yes, when I went to this Bible study, the lady who was doing the Bible study is the one that was from my hometown. I knew her, but didn't really know her very well at that point. So I went into this Bible study with already established people who've been here a long time. Heather Teague gave me a look. If looks could kill, we would have been burying me that day. And now here we are doing a podcast together. I knew that she did not like me. Let's just put it that way. There was no question in my mind that Heather did not like me.
So I think we've talked about this quite a bit, but so that everyone knows the full context, when His Heart for Africa was starting, we got a lot of, you're not an organization yet. And so it took me forever to gain my own footing in the community. And unfortunately, I did the exact same thing to you that happened to me. And it's one of the things that we've talked about that I regret the most, because now we've become like such amazing friends. In 2014, we finally were established in 2017. But until then, people just did not really want you to be in their bubble if you weren't an NGO, a non-governmental organization. And we were always a nonprofit in America. But here, nobody cares unless you're official, licensed, everything. And so once we got that, I felt I'm going to do that to everyone else because that's what's fair. That's just. And so unfortunately, yes, I did that to Tara. I've obviously apologized, and we've moved way past that now. But those are regrets I have. And I know that community can be so hard here. And that's one of the things that Betty and I always try to do is invite single ladies over, because there's so few married families that will actually invite you in. This mutual friend that we have that's from Murfreesboro, they were amazing. They did get-togethers, they had us over, and without them, there's not many other people who do what Betty and I do. I'm glad that we've worked through everything.
Within 3 months of coming, we had a CBO, but so that's like community-based organization, which is still a recognized organization, but it is not the level of an NGO. Our NGO actually finally got approved last year. We were in the process for quite some time. But yeah, there are several big organizations where we are, and if you are not introduced to those organizations or a part of those organizations, it is very easy to feel like an outcast.
Yeah, I recognize that completely. Do you want to share with everyone what the name of your organization is?
Sure. I have Experience Hope Ministries. We are now officially an NGO. I work with street connected youth. I will not necessarily say children because they are not all children. We do have a few little guys, but we work mostly with teenage to young adult, all boys, young men who have lived on the street, been a part of the street life for many years.
When you say street kids, does this mean that they don't have families? What does that mean? They've just ran away from some village? Give me some insight into that.
Someone that lives on the street, there's multiple reasons that they could be on the street. You have the typical teenager who's run away from home or young child who's run away from home for really no just reason at all.
Maybe they just didn't want to do their chore.
Yeah, maybe they got a bad grade in school and they got in trouble for it, whatever. Stubbornness, we'll say that, stubbornness. Then you have a group who have been abused by typically a step parent. It could be stepmom or stepdad. Abuse in the most extreme sense. We're talking pouring boiling water on you, pouring boiling beans on you, beating you with even what we call a panga, like a machete, extreme forms of abuse. And so the child looked at leaving the home as survival. If I'm going to live, I have to get out of this situation. Then you have a group of them who have come to the street because they are the oldest male. Birth control is not a thing that is done here. And so typically, most people look at having children as a blessing. So the more children that you have, the more blessed you are, even if you cannot take care of those children. The girls, they're not really chasing from home because the girls are used for cooking and cleaning and watching the little kids and taking care of the house. But the boys, they don't really serve a purpose to families most times. And so they will put them on the street because they think they can survive. Those are the most extreme situations, but there are also some who maybe both parents have died, they went to live with Jaja, which is a grandparent, or auntie, uncle, but they're not treated the same because it's not their birth child. So there are situations even in America where people run away from home, but these young men, many of them have lived on the street since they were even 5 or 6 years old. Now we're working with them at 13 to 26, but they've lived their entire life on the street, and all they know is survival.
One thing I want to ask you, you said some of the older boys, there's not really room for them at the house. Some of our students, their families literally live in a tiny one-bedroom, literally it's a self-contained little room. It doesn't even have its own shower or toilet in that room. And so what we find is there's always room for the girls and the mom if there's not a father or a male in the picture. And when those older boys just get to a certain age, they just kick them out of fear that son is going to do something to either his mom or even to a sister. Have you found that as well?
Yeah, I would say that's a big stigma as well, is they look at if there's one boy and then there's a mother with several young children, even if they're boys or girls, sometimes they look at the boy as he could rape us or he could kill us, like he's more powerful than us. So he has this advantage over us that we fear him.
Now, one other aspect that I've heard you talk about is that sometimes you'll be able to go and find these kids' families. And it doesn't always work out beautifully, but you've got some, what do you call that?
Our home visits?
Yeah, but what is the word that we use when we actually put a kid back with their family and it was successful? Yeah, rehoming. Have you had any success with that? And what does that look like? What is your process for, how do you search and find these families? Because some of the kids don't even remember maybe if someone's moved, or what does that look like here?
Yeah, we've done a lot of this last year. We were lied to a lot about families. I feel like a general cultural stigma is if I don't tell you all the truth, I can keep getting things from you, because if you don't know it, then I can figure it out, find a way to get it. And we had a big problem with the boys would say that their parents were dead, or I don't have anybody, there's nobody here, whatever. So the last year and a half, we have really tried to find these people. We have done home visits. I've driven to far northeast Uganda. We've driven to Kampala. We've driven all these villages. It takes a lot of investigational skills. I feel like I've become a private investigator with Moses. Moses is one of my right-hand guys. He's amazing. But yeah, we've really just had to do research and then on our way to these families, because a lot of these boys haven't talked to their families in years. So people change phone numbers. So maybe the number they had is off, or they don't have a number anymore. They don't know anyone in the village. So we go into a lot of these trips very blind, just trusting that God is going to get us there safely and back safely. We know the general vicinity of where the child came from. They know the general vicinity of where they came from. But maybe once we reach that area, we just have to stop and ask Boda stages, hey, do you know Mama Moses? Or do you know this person or this person? And eventually we've been able to get to all these places. We've had a couple of terrible situations that the Lord has protected us from. One was a terrible drive, and one was a son being attacked by the father with a machete. And so because of the ages that we work with, our focus is not to take them back home and leave them at home. Our focus is once our boys are rehabilitated, because everything we do revolves around Jesus. They get Bible study, they have discipleship, they have counseling, they're required to go to church. After a certain period of time, they are eligible to get a room so they're not staying on the street. And then after that period of time, they're able to get schooling or a business, something like that, so they can do better. Once they are to a point in their rehabilitation where they have stopped their drugs, they've stopped their alcohol, they've changed their lives, they then want to see their family. They want their family to see that they are not the same. They want their family to see that they're better. And doing this, we have been able to see some beautiful reunitings. And now they talk to their parents more often, or their aunties, or whoever it is that's raised them. We do have a group of smaller children. We have 12 that are between ages of 10 and 12. And all of those we have put back with their parents during holiday when they're not in boarding school. But we have very strict rules with those parents. If we find them out on the street, or if we find that they are mistreating the children, then the parents then will be in trouble with police. So we try to hold them accountable for how they're interacting with the children now.
You said something earlier which made me think, because we had a mutual mama that was lying to both of us. Mm-hmm. And it was that she just wasn't wanting to tell either of us the full truth. And so it made it okay. So this kid had actually successfully graduated through senior 4 of ours, and then came claiming to be a street child, right?
Yeah.
And then wanted senior 5 and 6 from you. But when you did a home visit, you found out that mom was actually there. And then mom was trying to say, no, they're actually a street kid, and give them education anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just one of the many times that luckily you and I are able to work together, and we actually talk about some of these families because we work in the same areas. And so there's a lot of overlap, which you and I both wish that more organizations did that.
Yes. Do you remember how we actually found out the truth, though?
Yes. So Moses not only is amazing for Tara, but has been a huge blessing to our ministry as well. And he went and helped Kezron and myself as we were passing out school supplies at the beginning of term 3 last year. Yeah. And we just happened to be in the area where this mama lived, and this mama all of a sudden just started looking at Moses real funny and was like, oh no. And all I remember is Moses was talking to her more casually than any of my other mamas, and he didn't know them.
Yeah, so Moses called me after you guys got back home, and he was like, Mama, you'll never guess who we worked with today. And I knew that he was with Heather delivering this stuff. I was like, I don't know who you met, whatever. This mama came up to me, and the first thing she told him was, don't tell this white person about the other white person. Don't tell Auntie Heather about Auntie Tara. Don't tell Auntie Tara about Auntie Heather. And Moses is like, that's not going to happen. Then she wanted him to come back later that evening, and she again was like, if you tell Auntie Tara, she's going to take the student away, and if you tell Auntie Heather, she's going to take the other student, like the other child away. And I was like, he's lost his chance with me. We're not starting this online.
For you, he doesn't fit actually in your organization because he's not truly a street child. Yeah. And also, he went as far in education as he could based on his scores with senior 4. So he wasn't just abandoned, but it was just a matter of, if there's an opportunity, gonna take it. Yeah. One thing that you were talking about with some of the challenges you face with some of these kids is alcohol and drugs. How do you face that? And what is some of the common drugs that you actually find here that the kids all take? Like, what is that you find?
Yeah, so the biggest drug problem that Jinja has with street kids is huffing airplane fuel. They will get fuel, they will put it in a bottle, and they will walk around just sniffing it all day, or they'll put it on a rag in a bottle and sniff it all day. And that is the drug of choice for a lot of street kids because it's readily accessible, unfortunately. and it's also very cheap to get. And so a little bit can last them for a long time.
And so with that, if you're on that, do you feel hunger pains? Do you feel general pains if you were to get hurt on the street or anything? Is that another reason that they're on it?
Yeah, so we actually have 2 boys that are rehabilitating right now from serious injuries, and both of them were very high on fuel when they came, to the point of they could barely remember where we were, who we are, but they knew the place enough, they knew where to come, and they're both very sober now. So it's actually a question I just asked both of them yesterday, funnily enough. I asked them, like, how do they feel being off of fuel and then compared to being on fuel. And Kanyama, who has only been sober for 4 months, he actually was very high the morning that he got injured. He got hit by a motorcycle, and had an open tib-fib fracture. Even when we first went to the hospital, he did not feel pain. They did not have to give him pain medicine because he felt nothing. And that is what he kept telling me, was I didn't feel pain, I didn't feel cold, I didn't feel hungry, I just was here.
Kind of numb. It just numbs them to what's around.
Affects, like, your brain cells and stuff. And the other one, Nicholas, that's at the project, he also made the same comment. He was like, it was cheaper basically for me to get fuel and huff fuel than it was to, like, go try to buy food. And then so Nicholas's injury was over a year ago, but he's only been with us for about 6 months. And his initial injury, he also had an open tib-fib fracture and went to a hospital where all they did was put a cast on him. They did not do surgery. They did not clean it properly. They just put a cast, which led to, sorry about this, maggots. And after that, he learned to walk by himself. He didn't have money to pay for anything.
With him, you're saying that they literally left the bone sticking out and put a cast over that? There was no resetting or anything?
No, his bone is sticking out, and even a year and a half later, it is currently still sticking out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the local places that people should be able to go for free health care, and yet he was turned away probably just because he was a street kid. Is that a lot of what we find, is that there's such a stigma around that as well?
Yeah. Unfortunately, street kids die because of lack of medical care. I have witnessed street kids come in with severe infections, severe problems because of lack of medical care. Unfortunately, even the places that are supposed to be free want you to pay something. And if they look at you and you don't fit the bill of what can pay the bill. But honestly, you were with me when we took Kanyama to a private hospital.
Yeah.
And even at that private hospital with 2 white people standing with him, they still wanted to treat him poorly until I had stood up and had to advocate for him. So it's a stigma of the community and the culture in general. Look at street kids as there is no hope for them, so why should we bother to help them?
So street kids, I know here in Jinja, what a lot of people don't realize is how many tourists we have because we live on the Nile, and we're actually here at the source of the Nile, and people can go and raft and kayak and bungee and do all kinds of things. But with that leads a lot of people who are just on vacation, who have extra money to kind of throw at things, and they kind of feel like, oh, there's a cute banana boy. But these are kids who typically aren't even on the streets, or how are they being sent out, and who's actually getting that money from the bananas that they're trying to sell? How does that work? Help me out with that.
There is someone that is sending these children out to make money for them. The children have to take the money back. Now, sometimes it can be a parent or a relative that is sending them out to sell these things so that they can get money. And if the child does not come back with money, then they get punished in some way, and typically punishment is beating.
What's one of the worst things that we've seen walking out of one of our favorite restaurants, the Deli, where it's popular, so a lot of Westerners, white people, whatever, are going in and out, and we see a lot of those tourists do what? What do they hand to those kids?
Giving them cash.
They just literally will hand them, I'll always be like, oh, they just gave them a red, which is a 20,000 shilling note, which for U.S. money isn't that much, but for here, you've seen that
it's a month wage for some people.
For some people, yeah. Some people are well enough off that they make $10,000 a day, but that's not what those street kids are making. And typically what happens to those kids if a big bill gets handed to them? What later happens?
I've seen it go as far as death. We can just go straight to the extreme. I have seen, someone will give them cash. I've even seen American money be handed out, which is even worse. But they will give it to the kid. What's a child's natural response? Hey, look what I got from the Mzungu. And they're bragging about it to their friends, or maybe they're buying their friends all these different food or whatever. a bigger boy comes along or someone else comes along and they end up hurting these children severely. I've seen them burned, I've seen them killed, I've seen them beaten within inches of their life. It's a great example of when helping hurts. If you're just coming to give money out to people, it's actually causing more problems than it is good. And that's why, like, when I used to have teams, I always made a point to tell my teams, you cannot give cash, you cannot give anything, because it just turns into a big problem. Even for us in the organization, we don't give cash to our boys. If they need a BOTA, we pay the BOTA. If they need this, we send someone to go get it. I have certain people I do trust with money, but just giving money to people on the street, I have seen it cause way more harm than good.
Talking about ministry, I know that you said that you don't have that first couple that worked with you. They're no longer working with you. I know there's various challenges we come up with, but what's some of the challenges that you face in ministry? You've had people lie to you. Obviously, we have people lie about maybe who qualifies for whatever we're offering service-wise. Because as an organization, yes, we're here to spread the gospel, but we're also giving a service of some kind. You do Bible studies and feeding, and you have where you'll treat them for medical wounds and different things. But so what are some of the challenges that you face in the ministry?
I'd say one of the biggest things is when you have white skin, people look at you as you have all the money in the world. Even if you don't, you still have more than them, which is true. But it becomes, if I have a balance of 1K, which is, 20-something cents, if even. Yeah. If I have a balance of 1K, she won't miss that 1K. Let me just put it in my pocket. Okay, she didn't notice that 1K is gone, so next time let me take 10K. Next time let me take this. And it just becomes this vicious cycle of deceit. I would say the biggest two issues that we have had have been from people that are supposed to be trusted taking a little bit here and there, which adds up to a lot, and giving it also to the boys, which is against our rules. And then the other thing would be, even some of our students have not stolen, but they've sold school requirements that we have bought for them because they think we'll just buy them more when it comes time. Yeah.
That's interesting. We actually faced that last year, which you were here and a part of. Some of our students did the very same thing and had been for years, and we had no idea. Mm-hmm. And we had everyone that we thought was trusted and working with us, and they just let it all pass by until we finally were like, wait, Tara, you don't buy books for your kids every term. And you were like, no, you top up a few, but they don't need a full dozen every time. And so we questioned our kids, and we found out they were actually selling them to buy other stuff, which the difference is if they would just come and say, hey, we need something else at home or something, it would be different. But there's just always this level of, can I trust you or not, which is just so sad and heartbreaking.
Culturally, in their minds, deceit is not a problem. If it's helping me, it's not a problem.
And it's not just with us as Westerners or whites. It's really sad to even see them cheat and lie to each other. Mm-hmm. Just the deceit, even within family or whatever. Yeah. It's honestly what we call a survivalist mentality. I've got to eat today, so how do I survive today? And that's how they do it. Yeah. What are some of the challenges you face in community? I know I wasn't the most welcoming, but do you find that there's issues? Are there other organizations, without naming them, that are street child centered organizations where they work more so with street children? And do you work together?
There are actually several street child ministries in Jinja itself, and no one wants to work with anyone. It's very much, I'm doing what I do, you do what you do, we can't work together, we can't partner together, which would actually help all of us if we would. And when I first came, I really tried to get to know people and push for that, and it did not work very well. Because most of us we're just cycling the same people over and over because no one's communicating on who they've been with, where they've been, what they're doing. And so it's very hard to, not even just with street kid organizations. I just feel like in general, organizations do not work with each other very well.
And I would agree, only because literally the mama that Moses came out and met and realized that we were connected, luckily you and I talked and we were able to go, no, we truly put that kid through school and it's okay. Mm-hmm. And he graduated, he did great, and now he can go about his life. But if we hadn't communicated that, you wouldn't have known. Because I was like, wait, how do you know that kid? And you're like, wait, no. So I'm lucky. I feel like we're lucky that we work together, but we don't have that many street kids. We have two that used to be on the streets, but never connected with you guys. But okay, so people don't really work together. And honestly, we face that as well. That is definitely difficult.
Another big challenge, even 4 years into it, is still church. church is hard here.
Why is church hard? Because I try to tell people back in America that I always, church is supposed to be where we go in and we are also fed. If we're not being fed and we're here being full-time missionaries and we're always giving, how do we get renewed?
And online church is not the same. I watch online sermons too, but it's different when you're in community with people. I go to a pretty good church now. There's definitely things that I question or I don't agree with all the time, but it feels better than it ever has. There's a lot of sneaky prosperity gospel, sneaky false teaching. And if you don't know the Bible, if you don't know what you're hearing, then you're going to believe it. And there's just a lot of culture involved in church that turns into kind of like witchcraft versus church, things that are said, topics that are approached. There's not really a great option. But just in the Jinja community, there's a lot of people I know that do home church. There's a couple of different churches in town that I've tried. It's just hard. It's not the same. You don't feel like you're getting poured into. I can't go to the same church that we have our boys at because our boys will come to me in the middle of service. Auntie, I'm hurting. Mama, my toe hurts or whatever. And so or they're just coming to greet me or whatever. And it's not a place where I can sit and be intentional with God and really be poured into. Like, where church is hard, I'm very appreciative that you guys do the Bible study because it is a small group and it's a small group of ladies and we can talk and we can do life together because that's not even readily available. It's just not something that you hear is happening everywhere. And maybe it is in a different group or a different clique or whatever, but for me, I don't hear of any others.
So I know you said you guys, so I want to clarify and give credit where credit's due. People show up here, and yes, this is Betty and I's house where we do this, but Betty is the one that organizes, prays about, and selects the book or study, whatever, and she's the one that really studies ahead of time and is prepared, and she is the one that I'll definitely want to give credit to as far as doing this. I love having everyone over, but she is definitely the brain behind that, and so definitely want to give Betty credit for bringing everyone together, and she's just so thoughtful in how she does that. And she does 2 different groups, a Thursday night group and a Friday morning group, because we have so many different people that have different jobs, and so sometimes they're not able to come in on Friday morning because they have work, but Thursday nights work for them, and vice versa for some of our other friends. So I'm really glad that you're able to come and do that as well. I was going to ask you, what is it like going back to the States? You've been here 4 years now. Is there anything that shocks you when you go back to the States, or anything that you wish people from America knew when you got back? Questions that they ask you, or just anything that you were like, man, I'm a text away. If people just communicated with me more, or how's that go for you?
I will say the longer I'm here, the more I feel disconnected. I feel like I don't have a lot of the same friend group. I have a couple of really close friends that I keep in really close contact with. And I have a few people that check on me, but when I go back to the States, which I've only been back a couple times, one of them was a super quick trip, but I feel like culture shock in a big way. The air conditioning is cold. There's too many options in the supermarket. The lights are too bright. Here, everything is pretty natural lighting. Even if you have a light on, the windows are open, so there's still a lot of natural light. Things are very overstimulating for me in America. I hate driving in America. I love driving in Uganda. And I feel like the comment/question that I get that kind of bothers me the most is a welcome home question. And I'm like, but it doesn't feel like home. Uganda feels like home to me now. America feels like a distant vacation. I don't know. I feel disconnected is probably the best word to say. But that, like, how does it feel to be home or welcome home? I'm like, yeah, it is my home, and I'm proud to be an American citizen. But it doesn't feel like, to me, I left home to come here. Like, I left Uganda home to come to America home. There's definitely things I love about it, the food, the Mexican food in America, and all the good, fun things like that, but this is home.
I completely understand and agree. I think for me, sometimes people just don't realize, while we can't get everything that we can get in America, we can get some similar options, and maybe we don't have 10 brands of one thing, we have one, yet sometimes, and even that is hit or miss, but there are things that are imported, and there are some nice things that we can get here. People are shocked that we have a car, or that some of the roads are actually paved. And I'm like, more of the roads are paved than you would realize. It's just when you get out of town and different things. Yeah, I totally agree with a lot of that. Okay, so you use a sending organization, and that kind of counts as a nonprofit in America for you, for people to do a donation and tax deductible, right?
Yeah, so I went with them partly for the tax deductible donations because I knew that was an easier way to get donors.
Mm-hmm.
And I had already been here for a period of time, and I couldn't go back to America and try to set up and try to do all of that stuff there. So they have been absolutely super amazing, and they also have been very intentional, even being under the church. I can count on half a hand how many times I was actually prayed for and meetings that I had with people, whereas this organization, they're very intentional about how can I pray for you, what's going on, having a call every few weeks. I just want to check in on you. How are you? What's going on? They did a care trip to come and just pour into me, which has never happened. So it's been a beautiful blessing. And my donations are filtered through them. People still give PayPal or Venmo or whatever sometimes, but most of my donations are filtered through them, so it is tax deductible for people, and then it just goes into my account whenever I need to bring it over.
Awesome. I know you've sent me that link before, so I'll definitely add that to the show notes so that if anyone wants to read about a little bit what you got going on, I know that there's a little bit of information there as well, and that they can get connected with you if they want to.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you spending time with me. Yeah, I'm so glad that we got to do this. I loved getting to sit down and talk with Tara today. It's crazy to think that some of the challenges she faced when coming to Jinja and starting Experience Hope are the same as when I was starting here in 2014. The mission field can be messy, but we are blessed to have each other as friends, to hang out, have Bible study together, and grab meals together. We serve a big God who is gracious and loving. We pray that everything we do is for His glory. Information about Tara's organization can be found in the show notes. If you love missions, know me, or have questions, and are curious about how I live 8,000 miles away in Jinja, Uganda, East Africa, please visit our website at faithondirtroads.com and send a note to join me on an episode. The link will also be on our show notes. Thank you for listening to another episode of Faith on Dirt Roads. I hope that you will subscribe and share the podcast with your friends and family. See you down the road.